Researchers who take Bigfoot seriously don't take every alleged Bigfoot video seriously. In fact, they're often the first to call foul on the fakers. So when they tell us they've seen video they think is legit, we take a look too.
In the Washington mountains of New Hampshire, a single photograph became the spark for endless questions. At first glance, it looks simple: a frame of a creek, shallow water cutting across a forest clearing. But at the center of that frame stands a figure in mid-motion, hunched forward as it steps into the stream. The longer you look, the stranger it feels. Scale is the first clue. Compare the body to the tall grass and the line of trees in the background. The figure towers beyond ordinary proportion. Its size alone makes it hard to dismiss. The body is bulky, yet not clumsy. Its limbs tell another story. The arms are unusually long, extending down almost to the knees, giving the impression of a being built for strength and reach in ways human anatomy doesn't usually allow.
Each year, there are hundreds of Bigfoot sightings across the country. Some people devote their lives to the pursuit of the creature. While there's no conclusive proof Bigfoot exists, when some new evidence pops up, you can bet we're going to check it out.
Posture adds more weight to the puzzle. The figure doesn't stand tall like a person walking confidently upright. Instead, it leans low, almost balanced on its knuckles as it crosses the stream, the stance resembling descriptions often repeated in accounts of an elusive forest primate. The lighting makes the scene even clearer. With an overcast sky, shadows are softened, glare is reduced, and the subject becomes easier to study without the distortion that bright light can cause. Then there's texture. The fur hangs in a way that looks naturally matted, shifting as the figure moves. There are no glaring signs of artifice, no zippers, seams, or inconsistencies in how light falls across it.
Bigfoot is not just big in stature. For some, it's also big business. There's long been a thriving economy built around a legend. Of course, we're a part of that, but we try to get things right.
Costumes often betray themselves in small ways: stiff fabric folds, awkward bunching at joints, or glossy reflections. None of that appears here. If someone staged this, it's remarkably well executed. But if it isn't staged, then this frozen moment is exactly what researchers have spent decades hoping for. If one photo can raise questions, imagine what happens when an entire family sees it together. A family's frozen moment.
What? What the heck? Dude, what? I'm not seeing it.
The next account doesn't come from a lone wanderer or a hidden trail camera. Instead, it belongs to a family that found themselves staring at the same unsettling scene together. It was winter, the ground coated in fresh snow near the edge of a wooded clearing. Two children were playing, their energy loud against the stillness of the landscape, when something in the tree line caught their attention. Standing between the trunks was a figure, towering, shadowed, and impossible to dismiss.
Where'd it go? I bet it's just some animal. Where is it though? I think it went into the woods. No way. I bet it's just an animal. It went into the woods?
The shape moved upright, each step cutting a stark outline against the white backdrop. It looked too big, too broad, and too heavy to be just a person out for a casual walk in the woods. The children froze where they stood, pointing at the apparition in disbelief. Their reactions weren't those of kids inventing a game or chasing after shadows. They were struck silent, transfixed by what was unfolding in front of them. And then came confirmation. When the parents looked, everyone knew they weren't hallucinating. It became too real. The shape was upright and massive, before it turned and slipped away into the depths of the trees, vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. Encounters like this leave an imprint because they aren't confined to a single pair of eyes. A solitary witness can rationalize, second-guess, or dismiss what they think they saw. But when an entire family stands together in the snow, each one focused on the same moving form, doubt becomes harder to sustain. Shared perception multiplies the weight of the moment. It transforms a fleeting image into something with presence, something harder to write off as illusion or imagination.
Look how big it is. I don't think it is a human. I I think it's a Sasquatch.
It was a bluebird January morning here in the foothills of northeast Provo when a group of guys saw a figure on the mountain that looked like something they've never seen before.
That is what makes this brief sighting resonate beyond its few seconds of action. The snow, the trees, the frozen silence of the children, and the acknowledgement of the parents combine into a moment of collective recognition. But if daylight brought clarity, the night brought something far stranger, eyes glowing where none should. Eyes in the night.
From Pennsylvania claims he took a picture of Bigfoot.
Rick Jacobs posted this picture on the Bigfoot Research Organization website. Says it appears to be a juvenile Sasquatch.
On May 18, 2025, a trail camera placed deep within the woods came alive under cover of darkness. What it revealed was a scene that immediately unsettled those who saw it. In the frame, two eyes reflected back with an intensity so strong they appeared to burn through the night, glowing in a way that felt unnatural, almost alive with their own light. This is not how human eyes behave. Yes, in rare conditions our eyes can reflect faint glimmers when caught by a lens, but never with this degree of power. The kind of shine visible here is usually the mark of nocturnal animals, species whose eyes are designed to capture and reflect the smallest scraps of light in order to survive in the dark. But here, those glowing points weren't set in the crouched, four-legged frame of a deer or a raccoon. They belonged to something standing upright, tall, and broad. Something that carried itself with a stature closer to us than to anything else in the forest. The mystery deepened when filters were applied to the clip. A distinct outline took shape with an upright figure, shoulders wide, posture steady, and form unmistakably ape-like in build. There are no apes in the wild forests of the United States. No species should be standing there, framed by foliage, watching silently in the middle of the night. And the subject didn't match any known animal in the region. It wasn't the hulking shape of a moose, nor the lumbering outline of a bear. Instead, the stance seemed unnervingly human, straight-backed, rooted to the ground, with a presence that suggested it knew exactly where it was and what it was doing. Some viewers even described the impression of a face, an expression difficult to name, caught between animal instinct and something that looked uncomfortably like awareness. What lingered wasn't just the image of glowing eyes, but the question behind them. Were we looking at an ordinary animal behaving in an extraordinary way? Or was this evidence of something else entirely? A presence that had mastered the dark in ways we still don't understand? And while darkness concealed one mystery, daylight revealed another, this time through the lens of a hunter. A hunter's uneasy capture. If the night footage teases us with suggestion, this next encounter brings daylight clarity. The woods were familiar ground for the hunter, a place he had walked many times before. He knew the usual movements of deer, the way bears tore through undergrowth, even the sudden flutters of birds breaking cover. But on this day, as he raised his camera, something wholly different entered the frame. A massive silhouette appeared, threading quietly between the trees, its outlines stark against the daylight. The sheer scale hit first. It didn't resemble a thin figure slipping unnoticed through brush, nor the hunched form of a common animal. It filled the vertical space between the ground and branches in a way no ordinary woodland creature would. Large animals announced themselves. They crushed twigs, split branches, and send echoes through the undergrowth with every heavy step. Even experienced hunters rely on such sounds to locate prey long before they see it. But this figure betrayed nothing. It didn't stumble. It didn't blunder. It passed through with a strange smoothness, almost as if the forest itself bent aside to allow it forward. That uncanny quiet was what changed everything. A startled deer would have bolted, crashing through brush. A bear forcing a path would have left behind loud evidence of its size. But here was something different. Its stride seemed purposeful, as though each placement of the foot was chosen to avoid noise. For the hunter, that control was disarming. For those who later watched the footage, it was deeply unsettling. The clip traveled quickly, shared and replayed by viewers, eager to interpret what it showed. Again and again, the same question surfaced. Was this only a trick of the light, a shadow stretched unnaturally across the trees? Was it merely perspective bending shapes into something more ominous? That tension between ordinary explanation and extraordinary possibility is what keeps the recording alive in discussion. Shadows fade, perspectives shift, but silence has weight. The stillness in the hunter's woods and the fluid passage of that massive silhouette leave the clip stubbornly resistant to dismissal. It lingers because the image doesn't resolve cleanly into trickery or familiarity. Instead, it sits in the narrow space where disbelief and unease overlap, daring the viewer to decide what they truly saw. If a fleeting silhouette could unnerve, what Harley Owens uncovered in the Smoky Mountains would push things even further. The Smoky Mountains discovery. In December 2024, researcher Harley Owens pushed farther into a stretch of the Smoky Mountains he had never explored. This wasn't an easy stroll through a marked trail. The ground rose in steep, uneven slopes, the forest pressing in from all sides. Thick growth, low visibility, and rugged geography made it the type of place where anything could stay hidden for hours without being noticed. For a man who had walked these ranges before, the atmosphere already felt heavier than usual. Almost immediately, Owens began picking up signs that he had come to associate with unusual activity. Saplings bent into arches. Trunks snapped at odd angles, as though twisted rather than cut. Patches of brush shaped into what looked like rough nesting spots, places where something large might have slept or lived temporarily. To him, these weren't random. They pointed toward repeated visits by a being that left more than footprints. It left patterns, structures, traces that suggested deliberate behavior. But it wasn't just the environment that set him on edge. Owens described an all-too-familiar feeling creeping in as he moved deeper into the wilderness. The sensation of eyes on his back. That sense of being watched had haunted him on prior expeditions, but this time it pressed harder, to the point where instinct took over. He activated his backtrail camera, letting it record behind him as he pressed forward. Later, at home, he settled in for the long review. 2.5 hours of footage can feel endless, especially when most of it shows nothing unusual, just static shots of trees, shifting shadows, and empty brush. Minute after minute slipped by with nothing to mark. But then one frame froze him in place. There, partially shielded by vegetation, was a face. Not a full body, not a clear portrait, but enough to stir immediate unease. The brow was heavy, pushing the eyes deep into shadow. The head looked broad, the shoulders even broader, filling the gap between branches. Along the hairline, strands framed the forehead in a way no mask could easily replicate. The shape was neither fully human nor comfortably animal. Observers who examined the frame pointed out more. They looked at the slope of a nose, the outline of cheekbones, the stark geometry of a domed skull. To some, the proportions hinted at something ape-like, but with unsettling traces of human resemblance. For Owens, it felt like proof of what his instincts had told him. He wasn't walking alone. He had been followed, observed, maybe even studied. For others, the frame posed a harder question. Did this image capture an unknown being moving silently through the Smoky Mountains? Or was it a trick of light and shadow that simply aligned in uncanny ways? Weeks later, another camera would strip away distance and bring the unknown terrifyingly close. A Canadian winter close-up. Only weeks later, on December 22, 2024, another camera recorded something equally disturbing, this time in Canada. It was evening, around 8:40 p.m., when the trail cam flicked on. Unlike the Smoky Mountains frame, this wasn't a distant figure hidden by branches. This was close, alarmingly close. The image fills with the form of a large creature pressing almost against the lens. The effect is suffocating. There's no room for context, no trees to measure against, no clear horizon line, only a blurred body too near to analyze in comfort. The movements add to the strangeness. The figure shifts with an awkward, jerky rhythm that doesn't fit the smooth stride of a deer or the lumbering weight of a bear. Then comes the sound, a deep, guttural growl, heavy enough to vibrate in the throat of something massive and unmistakably close to the microphone. Interpretations flew as soon as the footage surfaced. One camp insisted it must be a moose. Another argued it was a bear. But critics began dissecting the details. The back looked too narrow to belong to a bear's hulking frame. The snout, in those fleeting seconds, appeared too short to match a wolf or canine. And then came the first frame analysis. Some viewers claimed that behind the immediate figure, a second set of eyes glimmered faintly from the darkness, round, steady, and disturbingly intelligent, as if something else had been watching the camera all along. The problem with the clip is also its power. At such close range, definition is lost to blur, but the tension skyrockets. The lack of detail doesn't dismiss the image, it multiplies interpretations. Instead of clarity, the viewer is left suspended between possibilities, imagination filling the space the lens could not. Canada has long held a reputation for such encounters. From British Columbia's dense forests to Alberta's remote plains, from Ontario's stretches of woodland to the far reaches of the Yukon and Northwest Territories, reports continue to accumulate. This footage didn't add answers, it added fuel to an already raging fire. It left viewers unnerved because it withheld just enough to keep every option alive. Known animal, hoax, or something else altogether. As if proximity weren't enough. Even ordinary home surveillance began to reveal the extraordinary. Daylight surveillance in the woods. On a seemingly ordinary afternoon, a family's security system recorded something that defied expectations. The camera, set up to watch over the forest edge of their property, activated as it often did. But this time, instead of catching deer moving through the undergrowth or the sway of branches in the wind, it revealed a tall, dark figure standing upright among the trees. What made the sight so compelling was the context. It was full daylight, shadows were minimal, clarity was strong, and the subject appeared in plain view. This wasn't a half-glimpsed shape in the dark. For several seconds, the figure stood motionless, its posture steady, its attention seemingly directed outward into the clearing. It didn't flinch, didn't dart, didn't behave like a startled animal. It simply observed while staying absolutely silent and still. Then came the retreat. With no sense of panic, the being turned and slipped back into the woods. The departure wasn't hurried. It was smooth, controlled, and almost deliberate. That calmness is what unsettled the family the most. If this had been a human intruder, surely they would have reacted differently once they noticed a security system. If it had been a large animal, the movement would have been faster, noisier, and less composed. The clip is short, but its brevity makes it sharper and more impactful. Unlike staged performances where exaggerated gestures betray intent, this subject displayed no concern for the camera's presence. That indifference is seen in other unexplained captures where the figure appears entirely unaware of technology, as though it moves in a separate rhythm from human observation. For the family, the recording became less about what they saw and more about the haunting possibility of what had been watching them. And sometimes, it isn't researchers or hunters who capture the moment, but children who stumble upon it by chance. A child's blurry photograph in Alaska. One of the most fascinating pieces of evidence comes from an unlikely source, a 10-year-old child. In 2021, behind a family home in Alaska, the child was playing when something unusual drew his attention. Instead of running immediately, he did something remarkable. He raised a camera, pressed the shutter, and captured a fleeting image before bolting inside. The photo he produced is predictably blurry. Hands shaking, adrenaline rushing. It's exactly the kind of imperfection you'd expect from someone so young in such a startling moment. Yet even in that blur, the same key features stand out. The figure is upright and coated in dark fur. Around the head area, the hair looks especially long, almost spilling downward like a mane. The arms are distinct, one extended outward, the other hanging naturally, the asymmetry giving the impression of a body mid-motion rather than staged stillness. Skeptics, of course, point to flaws. The fur doesn't look uniform, parts appear uneven, clumped in ways that resemble artificial material. The size, too, raises questions. Compared to other reports of towering forest figures, this one doesn't look nearly as tall. That discrepancy has led some to argue that the subject could be a costume worn by someone shorter than average, or maybe the image was distorted. But the very circumstances of the capture complicate that critique. Children aren't known for keeping calm under pressure, and yet here was a 10-year-old who, instead of fleeing immediately, managed to focus, aim, and document what he saw. That alone makes the image unusual. The photo may be blurred, the figure may not align perfectly with expectations, but the act of capturing it gives everyone a piece of physical evidence. Figures between the trees.
Whoa. You see what I'm seeing? I see you, buddy. It's okay. Well, you can see the white of his eyes in the corner. I think I figured the secret out a little bit.
Another recording, captured in broad daylight, offers one of the clearest yet most haunting glimpses of a baby Sasquatch. The camera, positioned to face a wooded stretch, revealed a tall, dark silhouette weaving slowly between the tree trunks. It was visible, deliberate, and unmistakably upright. The gait stood out immediately because it was measured, cautious, yet undeniably bipedal. The arms swung in long arcs that matched the stride's weight. Above, the head appeared shaped into a distinct cone, a profile often described in witness reports. Coloration played its own role. The figure's coat, a deep brown or black, merged almost perfectly with the shaded undergrowth. In bright patches it was visible, but as it passed through the shadows it seemed to vanish into the background. This kind of natural camouflage isn't easy to fake. The consistent hue across body and head suggested something more than fabricated evidence. It looked like hair, catching just enough light to be seen before disappearing again into contrast.
Now there's a motorcycle. See?
I don't see nothing down there. Can't be the motorcycles, honey. There's another sparkle. You see what I'm saying?
What is that?
Tree.
No. You moved it, right?
Then there was the movement itself. Many hoax videos falter here. Costumes betray stiffness, exaggerated gestures, or awkward pacing. This figure moved differently. Its motion was fluid, a sense of mass shifting from step to step with practiced ease. Nothing about it felt jerky or rehearsed. What makes this moment most chilling, though, is the behavior toward the camera. The subject never reacted. It didn't rush, didn't hide, didn't even acknowledge the presence of the recording device. It simply continued forward, fading into the tree line as though the lens wasn't there at all. That indifference strips away the easy explanation of a staged event. A performer would be aware of the recording. An animal unconcerned by human technology, however, would act just like this, utterly disinterested in who might be watching. For that reason, this short but potent clip refuses to be dismissed.
Right there. See it?
Uh-huh.
Look.
There's nobody there. Where? I can't see.
Look. Isn't it those people?
Can't be.
There's nobody.
Not up in the trees.
There's nobody down there no more.
The scene feels less like a fabrication and more like an accidental capture of something that has spent a lifetime moving unseen between the trees. Why these frames haunt us.
For decades, researchers have been trying to communicate with Bigfoot. But have you ever wondered who he is trying to communicate with?
Each account, whether a single frame or a fleeting video, holds the same tension. The New Hampshire photo shows no seams, no obvious trickery, yet its subject feels impossible. The family's snowy sighting gave multiple witnesses, but no proof beyond memory. The night capture offered glowing eyes that don't belong to any known local species. A hunter's lens caught a silent giant. A researcher documented signs in the Smoky Mountains before spotting a face in the bush. A Canadian clip left us guessing between moose and mystery. Security cameras in daylight revealed a silent figure withdrawing into the trees. A child in Alaska snapped a blurred but unforgettable photo. All of it together leaves us suspended between two explanations: an elaborate series of hoaxes, or a series of glimpses into a creature that hides well, appears rarely, and refuses to stand still long enough for certainty.